The information shared on CNS Unfiltered is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any health or lifestyle changes. The views shared are those of guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Innate Clinical Nutrition or its affiliates. This episode includes affiliate links, which help support the show. Hello and welcome. I am Jena Salisbury, and this is CNS Unfiltered, a show where clinical nutrition specialists uncover what traditional medicine overlooks. Today's episode is a solo episode where I cover a case study of my own. Today's case study is definitely one of the more emotional client cases I've had the pleasure of working with, but my client's transformation at the end is too inspiring not to share with all of you. For everyone, literally everyone in the world, the COVID pandemic is a defining moment in our lifetime. Since 2020, millions of people have died from COVID, and millions more have been affected at least once. These staggering numbers also mean that millions of families have had to watch loved ones suffer from this virus. For some of those individuals who recover after their initial infection, recovery didn't actually mean they were back to 100%. For those people, there was COVID then, and there's long COVID now. Long COVID comes with chronic, sometimes debilitating health problems that persist months or even years after infection. Many people who go the traditional medicine route for help are often given this diagnosis and sent on their way. You have long COVID. Nothing we can do. Good luck. In traditional medicine, the diagnosis is the endpoint. And for patients, this condition feels life-altering, discouraging. For really serious cases, like today's client, it felt like a death sentence. This is the state my client was in when she found me and found functional medicine. I know, as I've said before, functional medicine looks past the diagnoses given by traditional medicine to get to the root. Maybe you're struggling with long COVID. But what if we looked at these conditions as catalysts, rather than just the beginning and the end of symptoms? Maybe you're struggling with long COVID, but what if there were underlying problems that your COVID infection just amplified? And what if actually getting to the root cause meant a real solution and not a death sentence? In today's episode, I'll follow the same format as usual episodes go. I'll explain what symptoms my client, a 71-year-old volunteer teacher who lost over 35 pounds following her initial infection, was presented with. We'll cover her health history and where traditional medicine left off. We'll walk through the protocol and diagnoses. I'll debunk a myth at the end, and you'll learn how this amazing client was able to go from being severely undernourished to living her life to the fullest, gardening, eating with her family, traveling, and serving the kindergartners that she loves. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CNS Unfiltered. I am so happy to have you here today. Today on my solo, we are going to go over a client that is very near and dear to my heart. And I say that, and to keep in mind, I see clients 40 hours a week, if not more, and have for over a decade. And so I see a lot of people. And this one I feel we can all relate to from the experiences that we've had with parents and friends and family members getting older. And then with the pandemic, of how that really has impacted our health and our view, and what journey it has caused a lot of us to go on. So this beautiful woman, 71-year-old African American, came to me with long haul COVID. So when she experienced COVID, it was pretty rough. And a lot of the symptoms never went away. It started a cascade of different gut issues and cachexia. So some malnourishment, so much so where when she came to me, she had lost over 35 pounds and her stomach was starting to curve in and go upwards. So when she's showed me this, it's hard, right? When you see the skin falling and the emotions are very high of saying, "Can you just help me? I don't want to die." And by the time someone comes to me, they've seen every specialist there is, right? And they're defeated. And now they need to take matters into their own hands. They need to know what herbs, they need to know what outside of traditional medicine might be able to help them because every option is on the table at this point. So when she came to me, on top of this very visual presentation, she had a lot of gut issues starting to go on. Hypertension began, anemia, fatigue. There was involuntary movements. She could not eat very much. And so this was where we start. So where traditional medicine failed her was just in the understanding of really how to rebalance the system. They're really good at giving a medication to turn something on or turn something off or block a pathway, but they're not very good at looking at the entire organism, your entire human body, as a whole connected piece, right? So she was seeing a cardiovascular doctor. She was seeing a pulmonologist. She was seeing a GI doctor. She was seeing her traditional doctor. They were giving her things for gut. And she had this thing like where the stomach would kind of roll. So for some reason, the physicians really thought that the rolling of her stomach and these involuntary movements were from a neurological standpoint. So they were actually going the route of giving her psychosomatic medication, and they tried multiple of those to try to control this. And so their approach was just to suffocate it, just to shut it down. It wasn't to understand it. So when she came to me, the first thing I wanted to see was what was going on inside of the gut. What was causing a malabsorption? What was maybe eating some of her food? What was causing us not to be able to gain weight? Like what cascade happened? So I use the word cascade a lot. And when I am referring to a cascade, it's because I'm looking at the body systems and the patterns that are happening. And I know with biochemistry and the very multifaceted body that we have, it is never one thing. What we put into our body will never affect just one thing. It's going to start a domino effect that goes through the body of that cascade. And so it is the progression of organs or processes that the body is going to release from a trigger. So just from an overview, when we have a long-term COVID, when we have a catalyst, right? There's an event. And for her, it was COVID. And that started a cascade. And that cascade, when we suppress the immune system, it leaves the opportunity for opportunistics within our body, whether it be a virus or a bacteria or whatever, to then take hold. And then the entire system shifts. And so that's what I really needed to start with to understand. Her stool test didn't show anything crazy, to be honest. So the stool test was done in 2022, and it was a GI map, which I no longer use from Diagnostic Solutions. I know it's the most popular out there, but honestly, there's a lot of false positives, a lot of false negatives, and it doesn't tell you too much about the environment, and there's better tests to be done. So I no longer use this test, but this is what I was using. So the GI map showed no bacterial pathogens, parasitic pathogens, viral pathogens, slight H. pylori, but I treated it semi, but I also knew it was probably a false positive. She wasn't getting any of the symptoms of that. we come into the normal bacteria. And believe it or not, she had them all, which is kind of pretty rare. The only one she didn't have was the Cleobacterium. So then we come in, and she did have dysbiosis. So there were several opportunistic bacteria that came up, both within just the normal and the potential autoimmune trigger. So the gut bacteria are living organisms. So some are going to be really good, right? And they're always going to be good, or they're going to go away. But then we have some that kind of linger there, that in small amounts, they add to the community, right? When the immune system's there, they're being kept in check, they're minding their Q's and P's, they're doing their thing. But as soon as we drop an antibiotic, or as soon as we get hyper stressed, or as soon as we go on a binge trip for a girls' weekend for a week, right? And we really shift that environment, or we suppress the immune system, or we get rid of the rest of the good people, now these bacteria have the opportunity to start being opportunistic. So they're going to have an opportunity to start wanting to take over. They're going to start to get a little aggressive and want to start taking over. So they can start good, and then they progressively can turn into pathogens, or what the test would say, a potential pathogen. So we definitely had some things going on there. Under the yeast and fungus, she did have a candida. It was not albicans. It was a different candida species, and there's over 5 of them. And this was under what traditional ranges would, quote unquote, be normal. Something we have to know when we're reading these tests is there's only a reference range, because that's how traditional medicine works. So in traditional medicine, they say if it's over this range, then the answer is yes. And here is an antibiotic or an antifungal based on your body weight. In functional medicine, I want to know if there's even a little bit of a piece of a parasite or a worm or a pathogen or a yeast, right? I want to see what that all adds up to. And especially for certain organisms like yeast, they create biofilms. One of the defense mechanisms that a lot of the yeast have, or different opportunistic bacteria have, is that they will create a biofilm, which is essentially them going into hiding. And so it's this thin film that goes over them while they stay supported by your mucosa, but it hides them, and it hides them from the immune system, and it hides them from kill off. And so this is when people or physicians can put in antibiotics and nothing happens. Or they put in antibiotics, but as soon as they come off the antibiotics, it comes right back. Or why the Candida diet, when they take away all the sugars and all the carbs and all the vinegars, they feel great. But as soon as they put it in, it's back with vengeance. It's because it actually never died. It understood it was being under attack. So it shut up for a second, went into hiding, it just waited. But it never went away. And underneath those biofilms, they can still procreate. They can still eat. They can still do all of the things. We are just non-symptomatic. And so it's very important to know what bacteria have the biofilms, and then really understand, is it part of the treatment plan? Because not all the times that you have something that can create biofilms, will it create biofilms? So what we see on a test is really only going to be a small portion of what's actually going on inside the body. What you see on a test is only their scavengers, only the ones that are out from the biofilms looking for food, checking the environment. They're the scouts. And so you can kind of take that number and you can amplify it, especially based off the symptoms that they're having, and you use that clinically. So because it's not an albicans, it's a species, it's kind of broad, right? It could be skin, it could be vaginal cavity, it could be a plethora. But they all kind of have the same things. They're all in the same species. So I can definitely read between the lines there. Parasites, she has a blastiocysis. So the blastiocysis that she has is kind of common to be found in the gut, but it comes from contaminated food or water. Most of the time, people are asymptomatic and they don't feel it. But other times when it's paired with other environmental factors and bacterial factors that are not beneficial. It can lead to diarrhea, bloating, abdominal pain. It's pretty normal with a big dysbiosis. Do I want it there? No. Will I treat it? Yes. But even though it's a parasite, it's not our biggest contender, believe it or not. Does it add to the toxic load? Definitely. Definitely. So we definitely have a dysbiosis. We have a present yeast and we have a present parasite. Again, the yeast can stay present in the body. The parasite can stay present in the body at extremely low doses and never have an issue on health. Maybe not even show up because they're just dormant under the biofilms and they're just chilling there. But with the catalyst of the COVID, it can lead to the opportunistic opportunity or environment for all of these to kind of take hold. And obviously there was space for them all. So let me come into like the intestinal health or the functional markers. No steatocrit. So we see that we do not have a malabsorption. We do not have a fat malabsorption, which is wonderful because honestly, I was looking for that too. She had her gallbladder removed. With cachexia, it means that there's muscle wasting. It means that the woman is literally wasting away. When she showed me her belly was sucked up under her ribs. She just hung, right? The skin hangs. There's no muscle tone anymore. The scariest part for traditional medicine is you're underweight. We need to get you to gain weight. And so it's very common that the first thing in a traditional medicine or even, commonplace is fat. Get in that fat. And that's what she was being told by her traditional physicians was eat more fats, eat more fats. But the girl don't have a gallbladder and the stools aren't coming out right. When you're telling someone, eat a bunch of fat, eat a bunch of fat, eat a bunch of fat, but they can't absorb it based off the mucosa, but then they don't have a gallbladder. The gallbladder is what's used to emulsify the fats. If we don't have bile, we don't get to emulsify it to actually absorb it. And so that can actually lead to a huge environment change inside of the gut. It can change the acidity inside of the gut, and it can turn into a lot of malabsorption, which is just not going to be beneficial for her healing journey. So that was a huge issue that I was hoping to look and see through here. Elastase was at 750. So to me, that is good. Elastase is giving us a pulse on the pancreas. So pancreas elastase is one enzyme out of many that the pancreas produces, but it's the only one that is normally tested. And so in the stool test, if you end up looking at it, usually they're pretty low. They're going to say anything over 200 is great. I do not find that. I find that I want anything over 750, 800 is best, where I'll no longer use any bitters or digestive enzymes. And so when I say hers are good, I'm looking for a 750, 800, top of the line. I no longer have to worry about the pancreas producing enzymes to break down food. I can rule that out. I might do some bitters, especially depending on how the system is flowing. And I did do that for her. We were using digestive enzymes just for extra support. Beta glucogonadase was actually nice and low at 823. This is really important because when we have biofilms and when we have really established yeast or mold or certain bacteria or parasites, this beta glucogonadase is going to come up saying that our detox pathways are impaired. So beta glucogonadase is an enzyme produced by gut bacteria that can reactive conjugated estrogens, increasing their reabsorption in the body. The enzyme plays a role in what's known as estrobolome, where gut microbes influence estrogen levels. So we can see if it's coming up, if it's coming down. Do we have a lot of estrogen? It doesn't necessarily mean that of the estrogen inside the bloodstream, though. It doesn't necessarily mean correlation. This is the estrogen after it's been deactivated, after it's been through the liver, and we need it to move out of the body. We need it to move on. But if the enzymes are really high, then that means that all the stool and all the packaged gunk coming from the liver to be put into stool is actually being broken down, and then the colon is recirculating it. And so we know that we're getting a recirculation of toxins, and so we are not detoxing properly. So I can read this a few different ways. I can read it as estrogen. I can read it as detox. I can read it as the severity of the implementation of the opportunistics also. There was no blood found in the stool. The secretory IgA was on the low end of normal, which in my opinion is still working on being suppressed. The secretory IgA is the immune system that lives inside your mucosal lining. It's literally your triager, your first line of defense. So it's looking for anything that's coming in. Is this a bacteria? Is this an allergic reaction? Is this a sensitivity? Is this a high toxic load? It's your first line of defense. So kind of like that triager. It's going to come up on a bell curve, be like, I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting, let's do this. And so when I look at that, if it's super high, I'm like, wow, it's awfully stressed out. It's working really hard for you. But on the flip side, if it's super low, well, it's suppressed. It's worked so hard for you that it can no longer regenerate itself. The issue is too big. If whatever it's fighting is too big and it lasts too long, eventually it's going to run out of resources. The bell curve is going to come down the other side and it's going to be suppressed. It's not going to be able to have the space and the capacity to rebuild itself. And this continues that cycle for these opportunistics. An anti-gliadin IgA was performed. This is giving us a pulse on celiac or just the body's reaction to gluten. Cutoff is 157. She was at 164. So we removed gluten 100% at this point. Calprotectin, this is an inflammatory marker, is also a metal degrader. And so I wanted to know if this calprotectin was elevated, not just for the inflammation standpoint, because that would tell me a lot going on, but also if this was elevated and seeing that she was anemic and we needed iron. A lot of bacteria, parasites, and yeast love iron. They will eat it. And so I didn't want to start pushing high doses of iron into her system if it was just going to be feeding the bad bacteria. This told me that that is not the case. So I was able to start correcting the anemia right off the bat and start balancing the nutritional load. We went through the stool test and we went through the protocol. Now, healing in general is never a straight line, right? We're going to have our good days. We're going to have our bad days. We're going to have our balancing. And when we have really big contenders, like a huge dysbiosis, a parasite, and a yeast, they're going to want to take turns, right? And it's hard to kill all of those at the same time to bring them all down, especially if a few of them could create biofilms. I normally don't start with a biofilm, but the catch is why you have to really look at the biofilms a little bit more closely as you go through that stage is because once you start breaking down the biofilms, you unlock their protection, which now allows all of them to come out. And so this could lead us to a high toxic load. And this is called a Herxheimer reaction. And so this is where you either release them from hiding. So now everyone's on the streets. We're going to have an issue. Or when you kill it, guess what? You're their host, you're their home, and they are awfully mad about it. So when you kill them, they want to kill you. And so when they die, they spew all of their toxins. So they're going to become friends and they're going to start letting each other into their bunkers, and we got to dance with them. Y'all, we did that for about 1.5 years. And during that time, she had many appointments with her GI doctor. He's very traditional. As we had started working together, so it took about 1 year of her going back and forth before him and I finally got on the phone. It's like, all right, this is what we got. This is where we're at. These are the exact things that I want to be tested for. And so we sent her and we got her retested for H. pylori. Is this a false positive or negative? I still used a pylori support supplement, but nothing in therapeutical grades. It was mostly just for the healing and the repairing and to stop any new implementation while she went and got it further tested. We tested steatocrit again. Through that time, we communicated, and instead of redoing this stool test multiple times, we worked together, which was wonderful. I worked with her physician to get her off of the medications. I had to unlock the nervous system for us to heal and for us to rebalance. So of course, I did not tell her to change any medications. I cannot do that. It was as she was going and seeing her traditional doctors and follow-ups, a CNS really ends up becoming that guide and that coach and that communicator and that advocator for that client. And so working with that physician, we decided to take it off, see how it goes, and work together for that. Nothing changed, to be honest. She just felt better and we were able to move much faster. The biggest concerns we were having that were the hardest to resolve, the reasons why she was on those anti-somatics was because there was involuntary movements. So she would just be sitting there watching TV, no stress, and the stomach would just start rolling. And it would scare her. And it would scare her so much she'd end up in the ER. And then the ER would go and do all these tests and all these things. And what they would want to recommend are anti-somatics. And so we went through that quite a few times. And she really did try every anti-somatic under there for this involuntary movement. So we ended up stopping the weight loss. We ended up increasing the variety of foods that she was eating. Going back to the cachexia gallbladder fat conversation, when I got into the research for cachexia, because honestly, this was one of my first clients with this severe of wasting, I jumped into the research. And out of our omega-3s, we have quite a few, 3 omega-3s, and one of them is an EPA. We ended up, I put in an EPA as one of the most researched for cachexia as far as the fatty acids, and we kept that very monitored. I also supported the liver for the absence of the gallbladder to emulsify these fats. So digestion ended up being a huge piece, even though the stool test did not really call for it. It's something you gotta have to read between the lines, and the liver can create bile also if it's supported correctly. So we had to do that to get these fats in. Once we were able to get the fats in, we were able to kind of start getting a little bit more traction. I had a gut powder that she was doing before every meal to help with the absorption and the nutrients. Of course, we did some high potency multivitamins, try to fill in the gaps, along with several other things. So the 2 tests that really supported me understanding what my next steps were and how to best support her was starting off with a functional stool test and being able to see the entire environment and the makeup of what was going on within her system. After correcting that, moving into the metabolomics gave me the understanding and the look inside of the rest of the body. So after about a year and a half, by February of 2023, we had stabilized, but we weren't gaining. So we did a metabolomics test. And the metabolomics test is an organic acid test that really breaks down how your body is metabolizing food, where in the citric acid cycle, is there a hiccup or within the conversions of your fat, your carbs, and proteins getting into the bloodstream as the nutrients required. It breaks down all of like antioxidants, ACE, alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10, glutathione, plant-based antioxidants, your B vitamins, some minerals. We see into the gut, and we see our omega-3s. I like to test. I don't like to guess. I know everyone has their own thought process with that, but I know this field It's time, it's money, it's new. And so if we have a way of not wasting time, not wasting money, and getting the answers to create a very specific protocol for that individual, then that's what I do. And that's what I see works. And that's what we use systematically for this client. So the antioxidants were wonderful. The Bs, most of them were wonderful. We were able to improve on our B2, our B1, and our B7. So our riboflavin, thiamine, and biotin. And so we added those in. Minerals were a little off, so we added a multi-mineral. The omega-3s, even though that we were taking them, were still only moderate. So now that she was able to handle fats, we added in more chia seeds and flax seeds and salmon, and we started doing it more from a supported food end. We also realized that her digestive support and enzymes, even though it was perfect on the gut test, organically, it was still deficient. But the probiotic support was wonderful at this point. And so now we're back to digestion. We cleaned up the stuff in the gut and we're back to digestion. Amino acids were overall really good, and she was meeting all of the needs. And mind you, this was without a protein powder. It is not my first go-to with protein powders. When we come into the gut portion of the organic acid test, the malabsorption and dysbiosis, there was still some malabsorption present. We did not see a huge turnout for dysbiosis, though there was a little bit, but nothing crazy. And there was no yeast dysbiosis markers, which was wonderful. So this was telling me that we were definitely in the right direction with the gut. And now we just really had to work on the absorption and filling in all of the gaps. So we use this to fill in all the gaps and get super specific with what supplements and what foods we were introducing, because these are the ones that the body says it needed. And so we did that. And she started gaining weight. So she's 5'7", went from 102 pounds up to 132. I still work with her. And so these two tests were the biggest test that I did outside of traditional medicine that gave me the understanding to connect the dots to move her forward in her health, to understand what I needed to take out that was causing stress in the body and what I had to put in for the body's innate wisdom to turn on and start correcting and balancing and healing itself. And that really is the name of the game, you guys. Like that is it. Like that is the most basic format I can tell you that I follow. We got to find what's causing the breakdown, and you take it out, whether that's the mold or the yeast or the bacteria or the food or the wine or the whatever, and you put in what the body needs to balance. And the body is smarter than we are. It is smarter than the scientists trying to figure it out. We just have to align with that innate wisdom. So the biggest component with her, on top of the testing, is that we never gave up on each other. That through all the hospital visits, through all the other physicians, through all of her going to traditional medicine and hearing opposing sides, right? Opposing from them and then coming to me and be like, oh, girl, I hate that you're on this. Or, okay, they just gave you another antibiotic when we're in the middle of a gut repair. So we had to dance with each other, and we never gave up on each other. And we got there. We got there so hard, so solid, I'll say, that when I just did a follow-up with her at the end of last year, at the end of the last school year. So in June, we got new blood work and we checked in, and we do about every 6 months. She volunteers and she teaches at a school, gets to see her daughter there, and she just loves the kids. But for anybody who knows kids, they are little germ machines. And so that was a huge concern. It's like, whew, we just got you good and stable, but your passion is going into a school, and that's a little worrisome at this point when we're fragile. And it was a virus that ended up kicking off this cascade. But you know what? She just wore a mask when the kids were a little snotty. She washed her hands extra. And this woman did not even get one cold, one sniffly nose the entire school year. Nothing. She's out gardening. She's working out every day. She is living her best life. She was going to family reunions out of state where she couldn't even fathom doing 3 to 5 years ago. Had a glass of wine and enjoyed her family at the holidays. She is living it. And her blood work looks beautiful. Still a little under where I would like it nutritionally, but we also do have to consider some age. And she is taking everything. She feels amazing, everything's stable. And let's be real, I'm just a little picky when it comes to the blood work, and I get into those narrow functional ranges for optimization. So we were at least in traditional ranges, and she felt good. Symptoms were gone. There is one thing, though, for anyone listening out there who might have a recommendation. We are obviously years out from 2022 when we started this. And as I mentioned, everything is beautiful. Weight is been holding for several years now between the 130 and the 135. All food except for gluten is back on the table. No issues. Stools are good. Energy's good. Immune system, perfecto. She can even make it through a school year working with snotty kindergarteners and make it through, which is amazing. But the involuntary movement in the leg has not gone away. The rolling in the stomach, that took us about 2 years, but that's gone. The catch, the part that is so confusing about the involuntary movements of the leg is it's not at bedtime. It's not like a restless leg syndrome. She sleeps wonderfully. Awesome. The leg actually kicks up when she's relaxed, say in her chair in the afternoon or in the morning when she's reading her book or when she eats or watches TV. And it will move. And if she eats, it kicks up even more. We have tried all the things. I have tried all of the things I know of coming from restless leg. And mind you, she had been on all those anti-somatics, which did not help it. And so I'm really not sure what cascade is doing that. I had even wanted to maybe try doing like a glutathione regimen more for like a Parkinson's, where you're getting about 5 grams of glutathione intravenously, because research has shown that that helps with gait and stability and involuntary movements. I have not found an IV place or physician that will have that conversation with us. But if anyone has some ideas, I would love to help her with this, because with that involuntary, what's happening now is it's causing arthritis at the base of her spine from that moving. And so that's now causing some lower back pain, and nobody likes that. So of course, we're going to be treating the arthritis and the inflammation that's coming from that movement. But ideally, I just want to understand it and stop it. So the myth I would like to debunk is that long COVID is the beginning and end if someone feels like they have long COVID, right? I see a lot of those patients, they come in and say, I have long COVID. But to be honest, they're all different cascades. When you have a cascade that brings health in a downward spiral, that is only the catalyst. It is only the thing that pushed the ball down the hill, but it is not what pushed the ball up the hill. And so we have to just fully understand too what that catalyst did for what cascade inside of the body. And so, yes, doctors can label long-term COVID, but that's just the diagnoses of what they think. The diagnoses doesn't give us a cascade. It doesn't give us a solution. The diagnoses is just their way out of saying, I did a good job. Really get in with a CNS if you had a cascade that started from long-term or from COVID, which puts you into a state that doesn't allow you to recover, because there's something deeper going on. There is something that wanted to live in that type of stressed environment. I hope this really helps as we all move forward together in this health field. I hope this really helps for anyone suffering from a long-term COVID situation to know that there's more to be done. There are deeper dives. And if you find the right person that really understands the body and the cascades and has testing to help guide, right? We can test so we don't have to guess. I don't have to guess. I have to understand, and I have to understand my resources, and I have to meet that person where we're at. And it's a dance and a walk together. But a diagnosis is not the end all be all. It is just a clue. And I guess maybe that is my debunk. What I would like to debunk is that the diagnosis is the end all be all. The diagnosis is just a clue. The diagnosis is just either telling me the pathology, or it's telling me the trigger. It's telling me a clue, but it does not the end all be all. You need to find somebody that can understand what that means, how to relate it to you, your body, your cascades, your presentation, and then how to get the answers to guide you to balance. I know it's scary as our families and friends and ourselves get older, right? We hear a lot about, oh, you're just getting older, or that's normal, or of course you're going to lose weight, or of course you're going to lose muscle. And it's frustrating and it's scary. Just like this client who came to me and her plea for the first year was, Jena, I just don't want to die. I just don't want to die. And we would cry. She is living. She is thriving. She is doing anything she wants to do. And I love that for her. And I would love that for every single one of you. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in today for this episode of CNS Unfiltered. Remember that a diagnosis doesn't have to be the beginning and end of your life, the beginning and end of you. You don't have to accept what traditional medicine sometimes can't get to the bottom of, especially when you have the wisdom to know and trust your body. A diagnosis can sometimes be a catalyst. When there's a catalyst, there's a solution somewhere. A CNS can do everything in their power to help you find it and give you your life back. Check back next week for a regular episode and stay tuned for more solo episodes with some of my own clients in the future. For more information about my practice, Innate Clinical Nutrition, go to innateclinicalnutrition.com to see some of the programs I offer or schedule a phone call with me. Or give me a follow at Innate Clinical Nutrition on Facebook or Instagram. If you're a future or current CNS practitioner, functional medicine practitioner, medical professional, or even a current or formal functional medicine patient, we want to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, or success stories, send us an email at cnsunfiltered@gmail.com for a chance to be featured on a future episode. If you're a clinical nutritionist or other functional medicine practitioner and you're interested in being interviewed, click the link in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss a new episode, and share this with a client or classmate who might need to hear it. Once again, I am Jena Salisbury, and remember to listen to your gut.